Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. My humble pranams to the Ramana devotees spread all across the world. Bhagavan Ramana is a very unique master, the like of whom the world has not seen for several centuries. His life itself is his teaching. He was not a philosopher working out a very difficult system of philosophy, but a person of realization who talked from his direct experience. After his awakening, he came to Tiruvannamalai and sat absorbed in himself, in the self, all the time. So for several months in the beginning, he didn't speak at all. He was keeping maunam because there was nothing to talk for him. Slowly, devotees gathered around him, seeing the spiritual eminence of Bhagavan. And they used to bring books from the local library and they used to chant from those books, ancient scriptures, or read from them. And that's when Bhagavan really discovered that what he had realized intuitively, without analysis, was being analyzed and then documented by these ancient scriptures like Upanishads. So, what this means is, the boy sage independently validated all the ancient scriptures. And for his devotees, his teachings and the words uttered by him became the primary pramanam, primary authority. And the ancient scriptures like Upanishads, they were of value because they said the same thing that Bhagavan said. The path that Bhagavan advocated, as I said, was his own experience. He spoke only that which he was experiencing all the time. And this path, he has used to describe this with the day-to-day experience of everyone. He did not make anyone read anything. The scriptural reading was not necessary at all to understand, because he was pointing out, this is your own experience. Just think about it. So the reasoning is based upon not anything external, but our own internal experiences, and that is why his teachings are of great value. He called his path as the direct path. Direct path because from the time you start the journey till the time you reach the ultimate goal, there are no diversions anywhere at all. They're all a single path directly taking you to the pinnacle of this ultimate experience. The path itself can be described in a very simple manner, because Bhagavan did not use elaborate reasoning. His reasoning was simple, and as I said, making use of the experiences of everyone, daily experiences of everyone. Bhagavan begins by saying that happiness is the motive of all the creatures. Whatever we are seeking, whatever we are doing, it is for our ultimate happiness. In this, the whole creation is together, united. Because who is the creature who will not want happiness? In fact, we want happiness which is uninterrupted, unmixed with any taint of any unhappiness. We want pure happiness all the time. Bhagavan says, this itself shows that happiness is your nature, your very nature. When something is unnatural, we would like to remove it. For example, if there is unhappiness, we are very quick to take action to remove the unhappiness that we feel. But there is no such thing for happiness. When happiness is there in you, you just take it for granted. It is very natural. For example, you do not go and then say, I've been happy for the last 6 months. Is there anything wrong with me? You don't get that feeling at all. And that's why Bhagavan says, this is your nature, very nature. Happiness is your very nature. But if happiness is our very nature, why don't we feel that? That is the question. And Bhagavan answers, it is because of ignorance. Ignorance of what? Ignorance of our Svarupam, our fundamental nature. Ignorance of this is what is causing unhappiness for us. And he explains this further. He points to our deep sleep experience. He says, in deep sleep, one does not know, one does not have a body, one does not have a mind, one does not see a world. There is nothing there. There is simple beingness because no one denies his own experience during deep sleep. There is pure beingness, and that pure beingness is also pure happiness. But then something happens when we wake up from the deep sleep. Something emerges from this pure state of being. And what emerges is the entity called as the ego, the personality. And that personality sees a world. And immediately the strives begin, conflicts begin, and unhappiness, suffering, and occasional pleasures are also experienced by this person. The state of happiness that he enjoyed during deep sleep is lost. And that is because of this emergence of ego, says Bhagavan. This is the cause of ignorance, and this is the one that is blocking that ultimate happiness that all of us are, that which we are. It is being blocked by this ego. So his simple technique is trace the ego and then put it back in the place from where it came. Take it to the source and keep it there. So this is the simple logic behind the technique that he has advanced. And by taking this ego back, what is it that is achieved? Maybe a question. If you lose the ego, what will happen there? Bhagavan says, when the ego is lost, it is not a void, but you are going back to your original state of beingness, and it is purnatvam, it is wholeness. It is not shunyata. This is what he emphasizes. But how will the ego go, which is so very solid with us, how will it go? Can be another question. And Bhagavan says, the ego is lost because we look for the ego. It has a habit of fleeing. It takes flight when you look for it. In Ulladu Narpadu, reality on 40 verses, he says, Thedinal Ottam Pidikkum. It runs when you look for it. That is the nature of the ego. And that's why he says, only because we do not seek it, we do not see, try to find out what the ego is, we get into all these problems. The ego thrives, it survives and thrives because of not investigating after it. Avichara vishadeva, says Yoga Vasishtam, it is because of non-vichara, inattention. When you look for it, it takes flight, and Bhagavan says the reason is The ego is actually an unstable compound. It is a compound of pure consciousness and inertness. It is unstable because if you really hold on to the conscious part of the ego eventually falls. Ayi patatyaham, he says in Upadeshasaram. When you look for it, it falls down. That's why he is recommending this technique, saying that the ego's loss, which is the ultimate goal, can happen only through this path and no other path. And he says, this is because all other paths, they keep the mind active. The mind does not go. Only this path, where you look beyond the mind, you transcend the mind and lose the ego in the process. So this is the simple technique that he has advanced, and this, the tool that is used for tracing the ego back to the source, is asking this question, who am I? Inquiring after the ego. Who is this I that has come out? What is its nature? Where from has it come? And why is it not staying with me all the time? It comes and goes. It disappears in deep sleep and is active during the wakeful state, and it takes a different kind of a shape when we are dreaming. So there is absolutely no standard behavior of this ego. So he says, you investigate after this ego, it is unreal because it does not endure. It comes and goes. It cannot be real. There is a real background into which it can disappear, and from which it has come, and this real background is there with you all the time, and this is what is called as Atman or Paramatman or the supreme state that is there with you all the time. It never leaves you, and it is not recognized because we do not notice it. So his path is simple method of tracing the ego back to its source. The interesting thing about this path is it does not require any scriptural learning. There is no dependence on any scriptures. There are no rituals that need to be adopted. And it is a straight path, a single step repeated constantly, relentlessly. No complicated steps advised here. Is a single step, but then one has to have the endurance for the long climb. The ego does not disappear so very easily. When you look for it, it disappears, is meant for those people who are already very mature, who have a very pure heart. But for the common man, it takes time. But then this question, this method, chips off the ego layer by layer, and eventually the final merging of the ego with that source, that happens. So in this particular path, no dependence on anything. Anyone can practice this. There is no bar, male or female, with different religious backgrounds, in any part of the world, it can be practiced. And it can be practiced in the workplace, in the kitchen, by a housewife, in a very crowded market also, and also in an ashram. Any place, at any time, this can be practiced. But the seeker should be sincere in his attempts. Sincere in the sense, he should have an open mind. Because all the assumptions that we have made all through our lifetimes, all those are going to be challenged, and one has to have an open mind to accept these challenges. Challenges like, am I real? Is the world real? Is there anything beyond all these things? These are the things that have to be confronted, and a sincere mind will be able to tackle it, if not now, over a period of time. So this is the path that is recommended by Bhagavan, But is it complete in itself? Is the next question. Is this path recommended by Bhagavan, the teachings recommended by Bhagavan, is it complete in itself? The answer is yes, because what Bhagavan asks us to address is one single issue, which is the cause of all the troubles, the presence of the ego, the emerging ego. This is the sole trouble. This is the only mistake that we make, the only issue that has to be confronted and tackled. If this ego is allowed to expand and occupy our life, then it is not going to keep us in a peaceful condition at any time. But if this ego is tackled and erased and the ego is lost, then the final goal is reached then and there. End of suffering. There is a constant experience. This constant experience that is of happiness, that is the result of this particular loss of the ego. Handai undahil anaithum undahum, says Bhagavan in Ulladu Narpadu. If the ego is, all else is. If the ego is not, all else is not. That's what he says. So, the only problem, the only question that need to be really confronted by us, that is advocated from the beginning. This is the only question that he takes, and then he continues with the same question all through the journey. Only thing is, we should not give up this. In the beginning, it becomes very difficult to turn the mind inwards and then inquire after the ego. But then, as we proceed, slowly, we are in a position to stabilize ourselves in this practice, and then we will be able to reach the goal sometime or the other. Without worrying about how much of time it is going to take, we should get on with this process, because this process, as Bhagavan says, chips layer after layer, chips away layer after layer of the ego, finally keeps it back, takes it back to the source of all happiness and the end of all suffering. Bhagavan has not only advocated this Atma Vicharam, he has also accepted approved of all other methods also. In fact, one other method that he recommends as an equally valid method is the method of surrender. And this surrender is the surrender of the ego, and the surrender of the ego should be so totally, it should be done lock, stock and barrel. One recognizes a higher power, feels himself to be helpless, recognizes a higher power, and then surrenders his ego completely. With the surrender of the ego, the egoless state is again reached. It is actually the same method but expressed in different words. Same method expressed in different words. So the Bhakti Margam, as it is practiced, is also an equally valid path, where the Bhakta leaves the burden of his life to the Lord completely. He says, thy will be done. Ennam yeduvo adu seivai, says Bhagavan in one of his hymns to Arunachala. Whatever is your will, please carry that out, Arunachala. I have nothing to do. Everything is acted upon by you. I am not the doer. That kind of a feeling a person gets in the path of surrender. Not only this, the path of Karma Yogam will also take you, and then when it leads up to this loss of the ego, perfect Karma Yogam is achieved, and this perfect Karma Yogi will not expect anything in return. There will be motiveless service. There will be no motive, no results expected of any action. So this is the same thing, egolessness through Karma Yogam. And for the Raja Yogam also, Bhagavan says, this is a path of meditation. The meditator merges himself in the object of meditation. He loses his ego there. Ultimately, all the four paths point to that final goalpost of the loss of the ego. Hritsthale manaha swastata, he says. Bhakti kriya, bhakti yoga bodhascha nishchitam. Nishchitam, he says. All other paths are accepted, they are all preparatory. So everything that people are used to normally, they are all very nicely integrated in this path. And this is the speciality of Bhagavan's teachings. Nothing is excluded. Everything has its own place and they will take you to the final goal. As I said, people from all religions can practice this because what Bhagavan has advocated is not only the core of our religion, it is also the core of every other religion, except that in many of the other religions, it has become a hidden core. It is not being talked about openly. It has become a hidden core. So everyone can benefit by this, and that is the greatness of Bhagavan's teachings. There is no need for anybody to look outside. His compositions are very few in number. He has composed works like Upadeshasaram, which was done in 4 languages, Ulladhu Narpadu, and the conversations with Bhagavan in the form of talks with Ramana Maharshi, or the experiences of Suri Nagamma, Devaraja Mudaliar, all these things are available for a sincere seeker, and guidance is all the time available to the seeker. It does not matter that Bhagavan is not in the body now. His guidance is felt even now, and he guides, and his grace will take you to the final end, because grace is the most crucial aspect of this journey, and his grace is assured when someone is prepared to make this attempt and then go towards the final goal. So with this I would like to conclude, and Sri Ramana Kendram, Hyderabad is grateful for the opportunity given for taking part in this global satsang. Thank you very much.